Hey, welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I'm Wood. In this series we're comparing two accounts that I started at the same time on the same day, and I'm playing the same way with one major difference. One account is free to play, the other has a monthly spending budget of $50. It's day 97. Let's check our progress. Thank you for joining me on day 97. Wow, yeah, sorry, time goes by fast and I've been MIA. I apologize. We have a green border around the free-to-play account. We have an orangish border around the budget account. And then if I do go over to my main account, there's a red border around that. Just so that you know at the outset, when I switch around between accounts, you'll be able to look up at your screen and tell which one I'm actually on at the time. We did the champ training tournament over the last couple of days, and it did have a legendary book at the top of it. So I don't know if you can see that very well behind me, but in our tournament pool we got 5th place and got the legendary book at the top. It was quite a struggle on the free-to-play account with just everything else that you have to do every day in the game and life, everything that happens. But we did get the legendary book. I think I was within the last half hour of the tournament. In the wee small hours last night, I was able to get that done. But yeah, it was a struggle. And the thing I noticed was that here on the budget account, it was not quite as much of a struggle. And I attribute that mostly to this. On the Forge Pass here, you can see I've got 50% more experience when you add it all up. There's 50% more experience here and 50% more silver for all battles. So as we did a lot of campaign, I did a ton of campaign and was able to get it completed on the budget account quite easily. I mean, it's always a lot of points to get, but compared to the free to play, it was a lot easier to get it done. And if that kind of convenience is worth it to you, then I think maybe it makes some sense to do the Forge Pass. I don't want to be misunderstood here. I'm not an advocate for spending in any of these kind of games. I don't think it I don't think it has any real life value at all. I think it's just for entertainment, and if this is what you do for entertainment, I don't begrudge anybody any spending. Obviously I'm doing it. As far as value in the game, it made that tournament a lot easier. But we were able to get all of it completed on the free to play, and I think that's the thing is that free to play is more difficult, but you can still get most of the things done when we're talking about this level of spending. I'm not talking about the hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month that people do and can and do spend. That is a major, that's a major difference. The monthly spending level that we're at, which is at $50, and actually I'm not even at that level yet, but I was able to get Cardiel on the budget account 6-starred. So we're working on that, working on his, I talked about his gear the other day and the crazy quads. I got 2 quad crit rate rolls on 2 consecutive legendary pieces of gear. It was insane. But yeah, I got Cardiel 6-starred. We're still working on collecting enough potions. I did do void potions over the weekend. It just wasn't quite enough, and mainly it was just because I ran out of time with the daily gem pack and everything else. I've got plenty of gems, plenty of energy, and so I could have done more if I just had some more time. I just didn't have the time over the weekend to set all the multi battles and everything. But you can see here on the budget account, in that pool of the tournament, we got 4th place. You can see there we got all of the rewards collected. So that it was very helpful for the account. We collected quite a few copies. Let me see how many copies on each account. Yeah, so you can see here we got 3 copies of the rare for the fusion on the budget account. And I go back to the free-to-play, we've collected 4. So we're ready on the free-to-play to summon the epic for the fusion. I think getting a copy of the epic for the fusion is probably, that's good enough for us right now. I recognize that the legendary would be a good damage dealer, but we skipped the summoning event this weekend. I talked about possibly pulling some shards maybe on yesterday on Sunday, but I just decided not to do it. We may have 2 times ancients coming up this coming weekend, and so I just decided to save the shards. And I think it'd be more impactful on both of these accounts to try and get some other things going and save up a few more resources so that maybe the next fusion, where this fusion is a damage dealer, we probably need some more utility than that right now. it may turn out to be a mistake, but I'm not really 100% sold on this damage dealer as a replacement for others. And I know on these two accounts we really don't have anything like that. I didn't feel like we were in a position to be able to do the fusion in the first place, and the fact that I'm not 100% sold that he's a game changer. We could pull a damage dealer that may be just as good. But I do want to get a copy of this epic. I think he has a pretty decent kit here, and I love his look. It's very cool. But that usually doesn't influence my decisions on champions. The way they look, and how useful they are. He looks like he can be useful here. He's got a heal reduction on his A1. It's a 50-50 chance of landing, so it's not as reliable, but it's each hit. He hits 2 times on this A1, and each hit has the 50% chance of placing. Plus, you could put sniper on and get that up to 55%. His A2 spear stench, I think he is supposed. Of course, badgers and skunks are related, and so we. Like I said the other day, we have badgers around where I live, and they do stink. They're not maybe the same defense mechanism as a skunk, but yeah, they have a very similar odor. Anyway, spear stench. I still kind of want to think of this one as a badger instead of a skunk, but that it probably doesn't matter. Very cool look though. If it's a skunk, that's fine. I'm not mad at it. Spear stench attacks all enemies on his A2. He has a 75% chance of placing a 50% decrease accuracy debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Also increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. Increasing buff duration is a pretty nice skill, and he's HP based on his damage too. So I'm waiting to see. I haven't really seen any testing on him to see if he actually hits hard or not. But because he's mostly a debuffer, I'm not sure we're too concerned about that. But it would be nice. It'd be a nice bonus if he hit kind of hard also. On the A3, it removes 2 random debuffs. Healing Spritz. What's he spritzing with? Healing Spritz removes 2 random debuffs from all allies and heals them by 10% of their max HP. Two debuffs that's pretty good. It's not a full team cleanse, but a lot of times you're not going to have many more than 2 debuffs on you. Also places a 50% increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns. That would be really nice for Frostbiter. A lot of times you need increased accuracy, especially when you're first starting out. That the Frostbiter has quite a bit of resistance. But mainly I think he was brought out for Nether Spider, and it's because of this passive that he has. Decreases the damage all allies receive from poison debuffs by 50%. This would also be good in Dragon too, if you're not using like a Staltus Dragonbane or something like that, which not everybody has, obviously. So yeah, I think that would be a good one for Dragon early game, and yeah, for Dragon, Frostbiter, Nether Spider, any of those, and maybe even just regular Spider. If you're struggling with accuracy and you need that or whatever. So I think he's going to be a good champion because of the utility of that epic. I think he's going to be more impactful than even the legendary might be in certain situations. With a debuffing damage dealer, it's very hard to gear them to a level where they can do a ton of damage, and especially early game like this. I think it would be quite a while before we'd really see the benefits of that champion on these 2 accounts. And maybe I'm just trying to convince myself that the decision I made to skip this fusion was okay, but I hope and it might turn out to be a mistake. It's just I was thinking that they were going to fix his A2 sooner, but as far as I know, they haven't fixed it yet. It's still bugged, and we still don't know for sure what he's going to be after that fix. I'm assuming he'll be just fine and that they're not going to ruin it, but I'm not really too worried about the Spider tournament, and I'll tell you why. I was going to do the Spider tournament. I did start out doing some Spider in the Spider tournament, but when this new Prism pool showed up, and this is a good pool too. It's not as good as some of them. The legendaries are. If you're missing any of the legendaries in this pool, I don't think you'd be upset at getting any of them, and getting another copy of them would be good also. As we go through the epics on this pool, there's a few of them that I wouldn't be too excited about on either of these new accounts even. So it's a pretty good pool, and I'm glad they're giving us another opportunity with the with the Sand Devil. We have a Sand Devil tournament going on where there are enough Prism shards to do one pull. I'm guessing there's going to be another. Usually they do it at the top of a Dungeon Divers. Yeah. So there's going to be another Dungeon Divers event that starts in a few hours, probably about the time that I post this video. So you'll see that happen. Those are usually a pretty tough one to get on the Dungeon Divers, but I think it's worth getting the two if you can get the two summons available to you. And, you know, if you're purchasing, then obviously I think a lot of people are going to be buying Prism shards just to get either this Wall Master or Thorian. He's a good damage dealer for Hydra, has a lot of utility. He has a block buffs and decrease attack, which is, you know, two essential things for Hydra on his max HP ability. So he's got some really good skills in his kit. And he would be a great one to get on this. You know, Armand's is, you know, one of the monsters of Arena and one of the best fusions I think we've ever had. And I would love to have a copy of him on both of these accounts. I mean, obviously that might not happen. Elva is a nightmare to face in live arena. She's good in a whole bunch of places in the game. Just a really, really good champion. And Michinaki is excellent for Hydra. In fact, I think Michinaki has even a little bit more utility and value in Hydra than this new Scourge, the half spawn, the fusion. It's just, you know, I've seen some testing and it looked like Scourge, the half spawn, was doing more damage. I still think Michinaki has more utility. I don't have him on my main account, so maybe my opinion isn't as weighty as someone who has been able to test both of them against each other, but I still think I like Michinaki a little bit better. Hefrak is excellent in arena. Just he's a very hard hitter. He's hard to keep alive. Most people build him with stone skin, and then when someone on the team dies, usually you put somebody on a team with him that is very, very squishy, so that they die early in the fight, and then he unleashes this crazy passive of his. Whenever an ally is killed by an enemy, instantly activates Hefrak's Scorn skill, will not put the skill on cooldown. And that's the most important part of that skill description. It doesn't put it on cooldown. If he doesn't kill you on the first wave, when he takes his turn, then he gets it back, and then he can do it again. It can be pretty devastating, but you know, a lot of times you want to build him with 4 pieces of stone skin and then a savage or lethal set or something. He's a good one. He's a very good damage dealer. It's just sometimes the setup for him is a little bit difficult, and you can't really use him on defense because everybody already knows what you're doing. And he can be countered, I think, fairly easily, but yeah, he's a really good damage dealer. Brogni can help almost anywhere. It's funny because Brogni was so good for so long, and these, you know, Infinity teams and everything, he was an essential part of. And now he's sort of fallen off a little bit, I guess, with Wixwell coming out and other strategies. But don't be fooled, Brogni is excellent. He hasn't lost, really, I don't think, any value. This block debuffs increase attack and shield on the same ability, and the shield cannot be removed. And then he can grow that shield with his A2, with Cavern's Grasp, and then with his A1 he has HP burn. I think this is part of the kind of a forgotten part of his skill kit. This readout passive that he has, whenever an ally under a shield buff is attacked, he reflects 25% of the damage inflicted on the shield back to the attacker. So it's not the damage that gets taken, it's the damage inflicted back on the shield. And it can be a pretty big shield. Also heals that ally by 25% of the damage inflicted on the shield. So if the shield gets completely decimated, 25% of that is going to go back onto that champion as a heal. It's a really good skill, and I guess it works with War Master. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think it can proc War Master too. And then his aura, you know, it can be useful in Doom Tower, resistance in Doom Tower battles by 60. Brogni's really good, and he could help you in almost everywhere in the game. If, you know, I'd say up until very late game, you know, I'm not using Brogni as much as I used to, but there's a lot of places where you could still find use for Brogni. This Corvus the Corruptor, this is one I do not have, but he's crazy to I have, you know, where you do face him, there's some City of Centranos on the Soul Cross area where there's a couple of these Corvuses, and it can be tough. He's a tough champion, and if he places both poisons, he puts on the poison sensitivity also, and then he has some damage mitigation against enemies that are under poison. he can control some of the damage of the enemy by placing poisons on them. And it doesn't say that they have to be poisons placed by him. So if you've got a good poison team, where you've got other champions placing poisons, you can really reduce the amount of damage that the enemy team is doing. And then he has increased duration of enemy debuffs on his A2. It's an AoE medical miracle. It's difficult to say for me. First hit increases the duration of enemy debuffs by 1 turn. Second hit increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. So he extends buffs on your team, and then he increases the duration of the debuffs on the enemy team. So there's a few champions that have that skill, but this is really good, especially because we're talking about the poisons, and the poisons really make a difference with this champion's passive. And then his A1 attacks one enemy, 40% chance of placing a decreased attack for 2 turns. So it goes up to 60% chance when that's booked. So yeah, Corvus is very, very, very good. And then Rhodos, obviously he's still one of the best single target damage dealers in the game. And yes, I know that there's some things that make him less valuable than he used to be, but he's still so good. And I'm using him on my free-to-play account almost everywhere now. He's great. And because we're doing this Sand Devil tournament, I'll show you just here real quick. This is on the free-to-play. I've been very lucky on both of these accounts pulling champions. I've been farming stage 11 of Sand Devil. I'm getting a few more points per energy for the tournament. It's relatively efficient. It's not the most efficient with these early game accounts, and I just crossed into level 60 on the free-to-play. I thought maybe that would kick us up into a bit higher bracket for these tournaments. You can see here on this turn attack tournament for Sand Devil, to get the 35 prisms, we only need 3,800 points. So it's a lot easier on these earlier game than on late game. I'll show you on my main account, it's requiring 6,300 points to get that 35 crystals. So it's a lot different. Sorry, here's the free-to-play account again, and that's a big difference in the number of points that you need. Strangely, it kind of works out to about the same amount of energy. I'm putting about the same amount of energy in on my main account to get the 6,300 points because I'm farming 25. I have a pretty decent team on my main account, and it does it in under 30 seconds, and it's not very many turns. But on the free-to-play here, you can see I'm farming stage 11, not nearly as efficient, but it's requiring less points of us. So it kind of works out to about the same amount of energy. But yeah, you can see I've got Rhodos, Stag Knight, Taragi the Frog, Adlin, and Frolny. And it's an okay run. And Rhodos makes it really simple. He's so good. He takes so much HP from the boss on his A2 that he becomes really tanky, and the boss can't put him down. Plus, he's strong affinity to the boss on this stage also. It's part of the reason why I chose this stage. The only weak affinity on this team, the only weak affinity champion that I'm using is Adlin. And, she has quite a bit of survivability for an account like this, for a free-to-play account. And Frolny does some decent damage too on here. I still don't have Frolny built the way I'd really like to build him. I don't really have any champions built the way I'd like to have them built on either of these accounts, to be fair. But we're making progress, and yeah, you can see it. It's not too many turns. It's not a lot of points. Yeah, so 32 turns on that one. And 30 points. So it cost us 24 energy, and I'm getting 30 points on that stage. So it's not the most efficient, but it'll do, and I think it's worth it to do that for the Prism crystals, and that's a good pool. Like I said, the epics maybe have something to be desired. I'd be really happy with quite a few of these epics, but I'd also be a little bit underwhelmed with a few of them. Creodan would be huge to get. He's sort of an entry into Hard Fire Knight, but he can be used in a lot of other places as well. Lochwain, I haven't really tried to build before. Indalia is kind of an okay-ish epic, in my opinion. Kellen the Shrike, I guess he hits hard, but I haven't really tried to use him either. So I guess what I'm saying is there's some epics here that I'm not too familiar with. People have been pretty disappointed with Aishma. I know she has an AoE weaken that's 100% when it's booked, and she has some poison on her A1, and then she has a decreased debuffs on the enemy and increased buffs on the team, sort of like a Sandlash Survivor, or the skill that Godseeker Aniri has, sort of similar to that. And then she gets some healing every time she takes damage from poison. Kind of a cool kit. But I know people have been a little bit disappointed with her. But it just depends on where you are in the game. And Tagore, I love Tagore on this free to play. I already have a copy of him on the free to play. Cornelia is one of the coolest champions in the game. I love her look. Man, why is she right over my head? She's looking at me, isn't she? So Cornelia is one of the coolest looking champions I think in the game. I love the creepy doll look, and because she's a dwarf, and I love dwarves. And she's got a really cool kit too, and can be very useful. It just depends on what your priorities are and who you're trying to use and build. Venomage is excellent with poison and some damage mitigation with the heal reduction that she has. Really excellent skills on her. Hotatsu can be very good also with the decreased attack. He's got the increased defense on the whole team. And then he has a leech on his A1, which is, and then Taragi, we started both accounts with Taragi. I couldn't be happier with him. Never really used him that much on my main account, and I thought it would be the right thing to go for on these 2 budget accounts, and I haven't been disappointed. Taragi's excellent. Ugo is almost essential for Hydra, especially if you're early game. She's, again, another ticket into Hydra. And then the Ultimate Gallic, I actually kind of like Ultimate Gallic. He used to be one of our only options for AoE HP burn, even though it's not 100% and it requires a little bit of setup. But I still like Ultimate Gallic. He hits kind of hard and he has some turn meter stuff also. Miscreated Monster, also excellent. He can put a shield on your whole team. Juliana is a little bit disappointing. I have seen some people use her, but I don't think she has too much value over, some other options that you probably have access to. Seeker is essential for some clan boss teams, and he can be good in arena too. I don't see him used very often anymore, but I still think he could be viable for some early game arena. And then Allure, one of the best turn meter control champions in the game, and one of my favorites. So I think for the most part, this is an excellent pool. You might be disappointed in a few of the epics if you got them, and maybe, if you're really late game, you wouldn't have a lot of utility on some of these legendaries. But I think this is a very good pool also. I like that they do these on alternating weeks, and that's been kind of a fun thing in the game. I don't like Siege. We have Siege coming up in a few hours, and I guess from the time I post this, you're probably right up on it. I'm a little disillusioned with this game mode. We tied on my main account, so we didn't really get anything. All we got was a bunch of destroyed buildings and not a lot of ability to upgrade or do anything else, and we didn't get a victory chest, even though we did the same amount of damage to the opposing team that they did to us. We destroyed each other's strongholds, and neither of us really got anything out of it, both clans. And so I think, it feels like a loss. Even though it was a tie, it really feels like a loss. On the free-to-play and the budget, we are, if you're not familiar, we are in the same clan on these 2 accounts. On this last one, we did many more points than our opponent, the Latinos Valientes. We did a lot more points than they did, but because we didn't destroy their stronghold, we didn't get a victory chest either. I'm not really sold on that game mode, but at least it doesn't take a lot of our time, so I guess that's good. Oh, and then, so the other thing about the Prisms is hold on to them, because we are having a champion chase tournament coming up this weekend, and it will overlap by a day. I think it benefits us greatly to hold on to our Prisms until Friday and not open them till Friday, so that we at least get some points for the champion chase. Even if you're not doing the fusion, I still think it's a good idea to hold on to them and then at least get some rewards. Maybe you're not going to do the whole event or something, and try and get all the rewards, but they might have some gems or some energy early on in the tournament, and you might be able to get enough points just through the Prisms. You're guaranteed 500 points if you can get 2 of the summons done, and at least 250, if you're only able to get 1. So I think it's worth it to hold on to them. And with the champion chase coming up, it's also a good idea to wait to summon any copies of the epic for the fusion. If you are doing the fusion, it's a good idea to wait until Friday to summon those copies. In anticipation of that, they usually ramp up the number of points required to get the rare for the fusion. And if you are doing the fusion and you've collected, enough copies of these rares, I'm going to wait until Friday to summon a copy of the Bow of the Rancid, because it'll give us the 250 points per copy of the epic. So that'll give quite a few points. You know, if you between the prisms and between that, that's going to be quite a few points. It won't be enough to get the rare. They build that into the sort of the system. They build in that they're expecting you to get some of those points that way, and so they ramp up, I think, a lot of times the points that you need for that champion chase rare. So do definitely save them, because you're going to probably need it if you are doing the fusion. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I guess tomorrow they're having a guaranteed 30 void shards for Inquisitor Shamael. I think if you do not have an Inquisitor Shamael and you have 30 void shards, or if you can get 30 void shards, I wouldn't spend money to get a champion in this game ever. Any specific champion. I think patience is better than spending money that way. But if you don't have one and you do have the 30 void shards somehow, I don't know how, because we just had 2 times on Void Weekend. He's excellent and he's so good for Hydra, especially if you don't have a lot of Veil options for Hydra. He's so good, and he does some pretty decent damage, especially on his A2 skill, this Cow the Horrors. He attacks one enemy 3 times, ignores 25% of the target's defense, will ignore a further 25% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. Typically, you do have quite a few buffs on you when doing Hydra. It's kind of a buff-rich environment. And then he places True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. Now that doesn't help you in Hydra, but he's just with this skill alone, he's ignoring 50% of defense. Just with this skill alone, he can ignore 100% of defense. You know, if you've got enough buffs on him, if you don't have 1 buff on you, he's ignoring 25% of defense just right off the bat, but he'll ignore 100%. So you can build him in different sets. You don't really need the lethal or savage. Some people for Hydra build him in a provoke set. You can put a blood shield accessory on him, try and make him your mischief target. He's a little hard to build for survivability, but it can be done. I've seen it done a lot of times. I've done it myself. If you're manualing your Hydra fights, you can put him in a provoke set and sort of use him as a sort of a backup provoker. That's not the most effective thing to do. I do still use one of my Shamaels that way on my main account, and it is nice when it lands, but his main utility is removing that fear. It's an excellent passive that he has. It's called Dauntless. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5%. I think that's part of the passive that a lot of people forget. I forget it sometimes myself. Whenever an ally receives a fear or true fear debuff from an enemy, this skill will instantly remove the debuff and fill the team leader's turn meter by 15%. When you put a Shamael on your Hydra team, you want somebody who has a lot of utility in your lead spot, because they'll keep getting turn meter boosted. So if you want someone on your Hydra team, whoever you want to take the most turns, that's who you want in your lead spot. And sometimes that can mess with which aura you're using or whatever, but yeah, I've found that that's really effective. Early game, I used to use a Geomancer in my lead spot and get all 4 heads burning with just Geomancer alone. With a Shamael and a Geomancer, you can get quite a bit of damage going, and then you get that reflect damage that Geomancer has. So if you have a Geomancer and you don't have a Shamael, and you do have 30 void shards, which is a lot, I do think it's worth going for if you're early enough game that you don't have a Shamael. I think that mostly covers what's going on right now. I am in the process on the free-to-play. I just wanted to cover this really quick. When the next champion training event starts on the free-to-play account, I am ready to 6-star my Cold Heart. I do have her with a very early game Savage set, and yeah, we still have a long ways to go on her stats. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with having a Cold Heart on the free-to-play account. Been very lucky. The RNG has been extremely kind to us on both accounts. I've gotten some crazy champions, and now it's just a matter of prioritizing and taking the time to build them all. I hope you're well. I apologize for my absence over the last couple of days. I'm sure you understand life gets in the way sometimes and you can't always do the things you want to do. Let me know in the comments if you have any void shards left and if you're going to try and go for the Shamael. Yeah, I do. Like I said, I think it's a good idea if you have it available to you. If you don't, you're going to get a Shamael eventually. If you're targeting a specific void epic, sometimes it takes a year or two to get one, but usually they do come around. And if you don't get that specific one that you want, most of the time you're going to get something that will do the job. Maybe not perfectly, but most of the time you will get something. So So I would stress patience for those of you. If you're tempted to spend money just to get a Shamael, I wouldn't spend money to get an epic, any epic. I wouldn't. In my opinion, it's a bad idea to spend money to get any specific champion in this game, even on a guaranteed. But do you? But I hope you're well. Thank you for your kind attention and all other kinds of attention. I've been Wood, and I appreciate you.